Greetings everyone, Lynn Joffe here with another thrilling episode of Solid Gold Stakeholders. Today we're chatting to Dr. Karen Singh, oncologist and author of the heartfelt children's story, Mama's Garden of Hope. Welcome Karen, we met at the Cape Flats Festival, right?
Yes, thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you for the amazing opportunity to be here today, to get to read my fabulous book and to share it with your audience.
Well, it's a fantastic opportunity because I saw you in action. In fact, we were both reading in the same session, right?
You were such an inspiration to watch.
But there is also a way of communicating with children of this reading age through the heard word, right?
Of course.
That's quite exciting. You gave me your CV and I see that you have a long and illustrious career as a specialist radiation oncologist. Doctor. I'm sure we all know the answer, but what did inspire you to create this particular story, seeing as you are in the scientific field and this is very much a creative act of love? What made you come to write it?
So this book is dedicated to all those beautiful children who come with their parents to their appointments, the little children who sit out there at the outskirts, worrying, confused, not knowing what's going on, but very much supportive and trying to support their parents through their cancer journey. We always know of parents that support the children, but I feel that not enough is being said about the children who actually support their parents through what they're going through.
No, absolutely. And even if we are adults going through that with older adults, it's in a sense speaking to the inner child, right?
In terms of the book as well, there's not only tiny words, there's a lot of big words because it's not only for children, exactly that. It's in a picture book to make it as simple as possible, but it's for all ages. I've had a lot of adults actually read this book and say, I supported, my relative through this, and it was so nice to just understand a little and to have it like the inner child in me being taken through this little journey with whether it was my mom, my father, my sister.
Yes, like my sister. In fact, I had to take a few deep breaths because Mama's Garden of Hope was my sister's Garden of Hope. Didn't end very happily, but there is a comfort in that somehow. But then before we get into the actual detail, what do you think your message is, if you could actually summarize the message of the book or the theme or the concept of the book?
It's a book of hope. It's a book of courage. It's a book of new beginnings, which is why I've chosen a garden to symbolize growth and a new season, a difference, but also beauty. So it takes a family or whoever you're reading this book with through the different stages, through the different parts of the different seasons as such in somebody's journey with cancer. This is one of hope. This is one of resilience and one of, optimism. I would say that this is one that encourages a family going through this. There may be books in the future that speak of a little more tragedy and grief, but this one itself is one of hope.
That's beautiful. When you write, is it a different part of your brain? When you're analyzing things, you're medicating people, you're operating, and this is you alone in a dark room, I guess. How do you pass those two between your scientific and your creative brain?
If you ask any of my patients, they call me Dr. Gentle Hands. So it's not just a brain, it's a brain attached to a heart. And everything I do is with the heart. I think it comes out in the book as well. It's not just about, something scientific. I never look at my patients as patients and numbers. I look at each person as somebody that has goals, somebody that has been through a lot, somebody who's a person's mother, father, brother, sister. You have so many roles in your life. And if you see people in that light, and that's what I try to put that same love into these books as well.
That's a beautiful thing. So did you intend to actually write a book? Did you sit down and say, I'm going to write this, I'm going to publish this? What was the actual sort of motivating factor now, right, after all this time, to write this book?
This is my third children's book that I've written over the last few years. And I was sitting in the clinic and watching this little girl coloring. And while her parents were in the room with me and she was sitting outside and coloring, but you could see her ears were almost like bat ears, trying to listen into what was happening in the conversation. Then you realize how many parents are overwhelmed and don't know how to share this journey with this child who actually understands a lot more than they give them credit for. And I thought, why not use this book as a way to open that discussion and to make difficult discussions possible between, example, a mother and her child, where they sit and they read this book together. And then obviously there are questions that will come out where they will explain a little bit about their journey, and also for the mother to tell the child, not to be afraid. And you can be part of the process. You don't have to feel like you sitting on the outside looking through this glass window. In that moment, the idea for this book sparked.
It's beautiful. How long did it take you to write?
It took me a weekend to write.
You lucky woman.
And then it took me...
Really? So it was like an inspiration, like an inspired...
And then it took 6 months of illustration to get my illustrator on board with what I wanted.
Okay.
So that part took a little more time. The story wasn't difficult, but the rest of the book.
So you wrote this story over a weekend, and it took you 6 months to actually complete the book. When you wrote it, was it sort of in a fugue of sort of creative fury?
So that same day when I came home after watching this child, as I drove, the story was taking place in my brain. I think I do most of my thinking sitting in traffic. And then the next morning, the Saturday, I got up, put down some thoughts on paper. And then over that weekend, this came out. And in the next week, it was just a little bit of putting something different here, making sure that the words sounded friendly enough, didn't sound like it was out in the clouds, didn't sound like a medical book, something that if you walked into a waiting area, you'd pick up and you'd read and you'd enjoy it. And then it was finding the illustrator and making sure that their vision was my vision.
Right. Were you intending to self-publish?
I was.
I'm just curious for our listeners, why not traditional and why publishing, and what was your advantages?
So I have self-published previously, and I love the process with my publisher. She made everything so easy.
So you say you self-published, but you actually had a publisher. How does that work?
Maybe to put it correctly, I have self-published where I've paid for the publishing, and I found a company that publishes authors. And for her, she went through the book, edited it, made sure it was everything that I wanted, took me through what the different presentations could be, the different sizes of the book, glossy versus matte, size of writing, and she helped me through the process. But it was something that I paid for myself.
It's a new way. One sort of calls it hybrid in a way.
Yes.
And did she find you the illustrator? Did you find it?
I had actually used the illustrator in my second book, and he's currently in Japan. So I reached out to him. So that process took a bit of time because of the difference in time zones. And
so I'm curious, because having written a children's book and kind of done my own scamps for them, if you like, little illustrations which weren't good enough to be published. Yeah. When you write, does an image come to your mind? Did you sort of brief the illustrator, now I want the mother and child in the garden?
Yes, I did. I actually wrote down... I basically went through the book and put them into pages, like little paragraphs on this will be page 1, this will be page 2. And then for page 1, I had the entire idea of what that picture would look like. There will be a garden scene, the little girl will be chasing butterflies. And you'll see through the book as well, the mother's length of the hair changes. So she starts long hair, she loses her hair during chemo, and then the hair starts to grow. So those were different things that I wanted. So it was a back and forth process because the illustrator first couldn't understand that. And he couldn't understand why the characters couldn't have the same colored dress in every single picture. And
it was time.
Yes. And like, this is where she will have, example, a green dress. She can't be in the same dress because it represents an entire several months. And you can't be wearing the same clothes over several months process.
In a sense, then you had a vision
of everything what I needed the book to have.
That's lovely. And so once it was packaged, if you like, once it was ready and printed, how did you go about the distribution? Because I know that you're very much active. You do literary festivals. You leave the books and give away books to doctors. How does the distribution work?
So I give a lot of books away to patients, to families. If I see a child in my waiting area reading a book, I will gift it and I'll write them a special message. I try to make it as personal as possible. I have had on my webpage as well, it's come out on my social media sites on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. I've had people reach out to me, and the profits from this book are going to CHOC as well. CHOC is a beautiful organization that deals with children with cancer. And to launch the book, instead of inviting a whole lot of people over and having a big party, we took the same amount of money. We asked Chuck for an inventory list to stock their kitchen cupboards. And we took all that money that was meant for the party and we stocked their kitchen cupboards. And
Beautiful.
that's why the profits from this book, next month is my birthday month. So whatever profits we've got so far, plus a little more from my side, will go into stocking their cupboards again.
Wow, that's very generous. So this is not a money-making exercise for you?
No, not at all. The more people that read this book, the more people that it reaches, the better.
Well, fortunately, you do have a living to earn. But what I love is the ability to be a healer or a doctor and to actually reach out in a creative way to the very children of your patients. Do you do cancer children as well?
I do from the age of about 10, 11 and upwards.
So childhood cancer is sort of almost a different sort of speciality. Heartbreaking.
Well, I used to do children and I found that my heart wasn't strong enough to go home to my own children every evening after treating a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old child. So in about 2019, I decided to focus more on the adults.
3 energetic children who are now adults. Did they support you in this? How do they feel about the book?
Oh, my children are amazing. My children are my biggest blessing, my biggest accomplishment. And through every step of everything I've been through in my life, they've been my biggest cheerleaders. They read the book with me. They told me what would work, what would be silly, what wasn't
resonating.
What wasn't resonating. And they've been absolutely amazing.
That's beautiful.
In terms of the pictures, what didn't sound right, in terms of the wording, that maybe shorten a sentence here or add a descriptive word there. So they've been part of the entire process.
That's beautiful. So they're your editors.
My first editors, yes.
That's sweet. Are there any intentions to render this into other South African languages?
That would be absolutely wonderful. It's just not something I've undertaken for now. If somebody was interested in, translating it into other languages, that would be wonderful, because I'd love for the message in this book to reach as many people as possible.
Well, let's get working on our Zulu and our Xhosa.
Why not?
So I grew up reading even before I could read. Were you a reader? Was children's literature important to you? Tell me a bit about your childhood growing up.
So growing up and what brought me into the medical field, I was actually born squint. So at the age of 3 and 3.5, I had major surgery done and my eyes were patched over for weeks at a time. So I wasn't allowed to watch TV. So I would listen to the TV. When the family watched TV in the evenings, I would be turned away from the TV, my eyes patched over and listening. I would listen to audiobooks. I would listen to the radio and all the similar classed movies, but I would listen to a lot. And because you can't see, you were forced to listen. And then I would make up stories because I'd have to be in a dark room for a little, for many days at a time. So with my little teddy bears, telling them the stories, making up things, because I wasn't allowed outside.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, the heard word, which is our big thing here, the heard word is a precursor to literacy, is a precursor to storytelling. You actually experienced that.
I experienced it, loved it. And then as soon as I could read, I read everything I could get my hands on. I would read with those little energy torches at night.
Yes, under the blankets.
Yes, I would read like a Stephen King book. I would start it and finish it at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't put it down until it was finished.
Okay, so obsessive book reader.
I loved it. And my kids are exactly like that.
Well, I just think that reading is the most important part of it, but the heard word is a precursor. Little fetuses in the womb can hear.
Of course, 100%. I also believe that children who read are children who thrive in their lives.
People will say, and a lot of people who we've spoken to have said they want to see for their own children people like them, which I think is very important, like children of color, children with hair issues, bully issues, but also reading outside of one's own life experience I think is so important. Do you think that this book would resonate with children whose mothers don't have cancer?
I think it's a beautiful story. I've read at a few schools as well, and they love it. It may not be their mothers. Somebody knows somebody. It's like my aunt went through this. Oh, wow, that's interesting. And, it's a lovely topic for discussion. We think that they're children's topics and adults' topics. But the children of these days are so intelligent. They are so incredibly mature compared to us growing up. And there's so many new topics that we believe is not for children, but they actually understand a lot. You know, compared to us having to walk to a library to get a book out and then to read. There's so much available on their devices, books and whatever they're exposed to, so many topics. And they have such a emotionally immature understanding of it. So the more...
Emotionally mature or emotionally immature?
Immature, because they're not mature enough to understand. So they read or they hear something about cancer, but nobody talks to them about it. So they can't understand what exactly is happening. But if we take difficult topics and we make simple books out of them, it's something that, you know, will encourage them to open up and talk about things they may have heard, things that they have seen, and in so much more of a mature way than they currently understand it at present.
There's a phrase that I used with my sister which said, if you can speak about it, you can deal with it. So by not mentioning the C word,
yes,
we can actually come out and name it. And if we can name it, we can deal with it. Do you agree with that
well,
thought?
100%. And a little bit of an aside as well, you'll find that the writing in this book is really large. Right. And it's not only for the children. When people are going through cancer treatment, especially chemotherapy, a lot of them, their vision changes. And if this is something that they want to read with their kids, it's not something with tiny print that they are, you know, squinting at and trying to read. So the big writing is not only for the children, but also for the person going through the treatment to be able to easily read it with them.
I note that you've received several accolades, including the African Honorary Authors Awards in 2022 and 23. And in 24, you were honored with the award for Best Children's Book at the Cape Flats Literary Awards. And we met the following year. Congratulations on all of that. You're absolutely my spirit animal now. But I saw you in action. We were both in a room with maybe 60, 70 children and their mothers, and they were drawn in, and you were very much into performance, and some of the children played the roles of the children in the story. So do you think it's important to perform the book for children and that it has a shelf life beyond its, you know, its first moment of publication? Talk about that a bit.
Of course. So it depends on the age group that you're appealing to. If it's the younger kids in, you know, under 10s, it's not just about the written word. It's also about the visual part of learning. It's about that entire performance. And I had that, exactly as you said, the honor of being at the Cape Flats Literary Festival. And the kids were amazing. Afterwards, there were so many that came up and asked questions. The little puppets that we took along, and they were part of the process. And it was much more interactive than if I had just come out there to lecture them on a topic or cancer. But to see how many of them were touched in their personal lives, in their family lives, that they were part of the process.
What sort of questions did they ask?
Oh, they asked about their mummies and their aunties.
Really?
And what do you think of cancer? And should they start screening for cancer because it's something they've heard? Apparently how food causes cancer. And do we think that... They had such mature questions. And you realize it's a topic that's out there. They hear about it, but no one's talking to them about it.
So you're breaking a taboo in a way.
It was just a beautiful, beautiful opportunity and such a wonderful experience.
Well, I just hope that the children who have seen you perform and have read the book will come to Solid Gold Storytime to hear you read the book.
Thank you.
Because it's beautifully read. It's heartfelt. I feel it. Look, I'm very invested in this cancer story, like I've said to you.
Yeah.
Would I be as empathic had I not had the experience? But then it's brought closer to me. I have cousins who all died in their 40s whose children still don't know what happened to them.
Yes.
So then passing that trauma down to their children and so on and so on. So it's a healing, right?
No, of course. Being part of a process where you can feel open to ask questions of something that you're scared about, and not just for the children. It gives the parents an outlet as well to be able to take a big topic. I've even had teenagers read this book. One of my patients, her father had died of cancer, and her son, she bought a copy for her 16-year-old son who doesn't like to read. And he read this, and he had questions about his grandfather and why his grandfather had passed, and what, you know, they could have done differently, and how can he, in his life, what changes can he make? And it was a beautiful, beautiful way for us to, start that discussion.
So you see, even if in the end of this story, if you like, and you say this, they lived happily ever after. Some of us who've been through this journey with loved ones did not end up so happily. And yet, I've always said this, I never felt more alive than when my sister was dying. And things like noticing the flowers in the garden, which she took photographs of, and the tiny, tiny little things that make life in that moment worthwhile. I think you've captured that very essentially in your book, whether or not it has a happy ending.
Thank you so much. I hope to have another book out, because children have come up to me, even at the festival, and asked, so what if Mom did die? Do you think they told me, why don't you write another book? Would you consider writing a book about
the
this?
Brief?
Yes. Why don't you write a book? I would, definitely.
You will?
I will. I definitely will. The next part, I just have to find a sensitive way to click in that weekend when I write it.
Absolutely.
Like how to make it as sensitive, but not just oversimplify it where, children think that you're just fooling around and playing around with them. They must feel valued in what they read. They must feel that this was written for them, treating them and respecting their feelings the way you write it. It's a very sensitive topic, but I just need to make it work in my mind how we're going to bring that across in a beautiful way.
You'll find that weekend.
Yeah.
So the story is on Solid Gold Storytime. We're now on Solid Gold Stakeholders, but tell the audience at home, where can they obtain the book?
If you are interested in a book, you're welcome to reach out to us at Sacred Heart Oncology. We're on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram. I hope to soon have a website out as well for the sale of the books, but for now, please reach out to Sacred Heart Oncology.
Dr. Karan Singh, what a fantastic and fascinating chat. You've inspired me. We're so grateful that you've taken the time out of your insane schedule to be with us on Solid Gold Stakeholders.
What an incredible experience, Lynn. I'm so privileged to be here today.
Oh, we're so privileged to have you. You've been listening to another Solid Gold podcast.